With every start, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head.
Hi, welcome to Break the Stigma. This is your host, Natalie Bollon. I'm with the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, Mental Health Services Board of Tuscarawas and Carroll County, the ADAMHS Board. So let's talk about high school. So you're in high school, and talk to me about some of the offers that start rolling in for scholarships and college opportunities.
So after I got named quarterback, because I thought once I got named quarterback, I was like, okay, football's it. I can get a full ride scholarship. Baseball does not give full rides. So I'm going to focus on football. And I want to try to get both. After my junior season, the first offer I got was from Ohio University. And that was, a great moment. And I feel like if my dad was alive, he was like, all right, you're signing. But to me at that time, so I had like a false confidence that I like to kind of portray. And at that time, I'm like, well, I'm going to Ohio State. Deep down, I did have doubts. But to me, I was like, I'm going to Ohio State. Coach If took me and Daniel around to all these camps. And there was a lot of colleges that talked to Coach If like, hey, we're interested. We want to give him an offer. Is he interested? And, I was in love at the time. So I don't know how Coach If felt about that. He probably was like, oh, my gosh, because he didn't know I would end up marrying her. And he was probably like, what is he doing? He's throwing away colleges just because of a high school relationship. Because there was colleges like Florida Atlantic that are like in West Palm or something like that. And I saw that campus when I was playing for pro baseball. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, I'm glad I married her.
I'm sure she's glad to hear that.
Yes. But I went on visits to Cincinnati, and up front, I was like, hey, I'm interested in playing both. They were like, you can't do that here. And I'm like, But basically, ultimately, I want to say the schools that were realistic and the schools that I could go to were Ohio University, actual all-black college, Southern University in Louisiana, Florida Atlantic, Eastern Michigan, and Illinois was really both baseball and football. They wouldn't let me play both, so I was going to have to decide. But for football, they had Juice Williams, so that kind of went away. But, baseball, they wanted me. But for me, I was like, that's way too far. Despite the guy driving 9 hours to come see me when a game got rained out. I had no clue. I was just like, yeah, whatever. Talked to him for a little bit at my house. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know that he made a lot of effort to come talk to me and stuff like that. So, and Coach Bircher, my baseball coach, always gives me a hard time about that.
He came to see you for baseball?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And our game got rained out, and I just didn't really have, obviously, Susie and Grover, their hospitality was good, but I didn't grasp what was going on at the time.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that anybody would have at that age. That's a lot for a high school junior.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting letters from all these schools, Vanderbilt, Miami in Florida, not Miami, Ohio, but
still a good school.
Yeah, well, they're Ball State's rival, so I don't like Miami, Ohio.
All right, so sorry.
I'm joking. It was funny when Coach Brady Hoke would try to get us to be angry at Miami, Ohio, because that was his rival. They were the only school that didn't vote Ball State into the MAC at the time. It
worked, didn't it?
But yeah, I'm getting all these letters, so I'm assuming I'm going anywhere. But yeah.
So you mentioned that false confidence. Are you still kind of building up that confidence, still feeling pretty good, or is that good enough still creeping in there at that point?
I would say it's still creeping in some aspects. Talking to people, getting to know people, that I feel like that's always going to be there. Unless maybe I have like a big pimple or something on my nose, then I'll be like, all right, man, I'll talk to you later. But for the most part, making sure, I think I still struggle in confidence with being the provider for my family, just because I know the potential of money I could have made, even though my wife, she has never said or even acted like, oh man, I wish you were still playing baseball so you can have all this money. You know, she
It's
still
not
wants to
what it's
stay in her
about
little
for her.
house. And I'm like, I want to move into a bigger house. So I'm glad to, you know, have her in my life because I know, you know, some people might not have been as patient for so long, matter of fact. And then still, you know, and I have a good job at ComDoc, you know, don't take it bad, Steve. No. But it's just this, you know, and I try not to compare myself, but I know there's certain people that live in different neighborhoods that I'd always thought I wanted to live in. And, you know, I still struggle a little bit with that just because I want my family to have everything, you know, which they technically do. But,
I get it. I get it again.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't think you're alone there either.
Yeah.
So you finally decided on a school. How'd you decide?
So this is kind of funny. So I waited super long on Ohio State, went on a visit there. They said, we're not going to give you a scholarship. We probably won't look at you till next spring, and you're going to get beat up a lot every day at practice, being the scout team quarterback. So I looked and I said, James Laurinaitis, I don't want to deal with that. So basically I waited too long for Ohio University. I never made a decision for them, so they took their offer away. They had to go other places since I never made a decision. And I would say it got to be my summer of my after I graduated. It was like,
Oh my
I
gosh.
was like graduating. Yes, it happened. I had already went on a visit to Ball State with Daniel, and I didn't know anything about that school. I thought it was like this little campus over here. I didn't know how big it was. And I was making fun of Daniel. I'd never heard of that school. I was like, Ball State, you know, when you're in high school, you do dumb jokes. But anyways, it came down to really relying on Ball State a little bit. Always keeping that there, like Daniel, like what's going on there. And I almost went to Mount Union, and there wasn't any trust there because they told me I was going to be a starting quarterback, and that the quarterback they had now, who was a 2-time national champ, was going to be graduating, but he was going to be a junior, I believe, that the next year. So I was like, I'm not. And then last minute, Ball State had a quarterback kicked off the team. So it was
Perfect timing.
Yeah, so I was a preferred walk-on, no scholarship, just academic scholarships. And it was an out-of-state school. Wish I would have just chosen in-state school.
I get it. Me too.
Yes. So I ended up, you know, getting some scholarships from my school. Good thing. Dover's got some good education, I guess. But yeah, I ended up going to Ball State as a preferred walk-on with hopes to get a scholarship earned, knowing I was going to be low on the depth chart because they had a good quarterback there. And, you know, that quickly set in to be the confidence lower once I got to Ball State.
All right, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so one thing, and I feel like I never had admitted this, but once I got to the Ball State locker room, I was kind of intimidated because I didn't know what Ball State was. I didn't know the campus was bigger than I thought it was. I think there was like 18,000 students, and I thought there was going to be like 2,500. And I got lost.
Difference.
Yeah, I got lost my first day. I was in some neighborhood looking for my class, and I get to practice, and you know the club, the locker room is it's full of like super athletic, talented guys, but most of them are black, and I'd never seen that before. So me in my locker room, even if it wasn't true, I always looked at myself as, well, you know, I'm pretty much the best athlete everywhere I've been. And going into that locker room, seeing guys from Florida, Georgia, just all over, it kind of like, well, okay, they're coming from some bigger areas. You know, their talent pool is probably different. And that automatically kind of just, all right, I got to prove myself, not to them, but to me, you know. Terrible way to think, by the way.
I think that's really normal, though.
It is normal, but it's terrible.
So what did you do with that then? So of course, your confidence is shaken. You went from being top dog at everything to now where do I fit in this? What'd you do with that?
Not the best. So the first thing I noticed is when I was in practice, they threw me into the first team. So the coach told me he was going to do that, but I thought it was just Coach Jabber, like, oh, I'll put you the first team. You better have that playbook memorized. And of course I didn't. And I came in, and literally the first two a day, Coach Parrish, who was Tom Brady's quarterback coach at Michigan. So he's got a great resume. He's a great coach. Throws me into the Wolves with the first team. And there's the whole line is like juniors and seniors. And the quarterback there was Nate Davis. He was this highly recruited athlete, got drafted for baseball, basically could have played professional sports at every sport. He played professional football. He got drafted to play professional baseball, and he was like top Ohio basketball scorers behind like LeBron, and he wasn't allowed to play basketball by the football team. So just this all world athlete. And the one thing, like when I first met him, I was surprised, and this is the point I knew that something was wrong with my confidence at that part in football. That was we got to talking, and he's like, "Yeah, man, heard a lot about you. They say you're better than me. We'll see about that." And I was like, "Wow, they say I'm better than Nate Davis." That should not have been the first thought in my head, but it was. When you're playing at the collegiate level, Division I, you have to come in with a certain swagger and confidence, and everyone can tell right away. So when I got in that huddle, without me even saying anything, the line is like, "Get him out." They literally said, "Get out," before anything happened. Coach was like, "No," and I couldn't even say the play. So after I couldn't say the play, literally the center, Dan Gerberry, just pushed me. He's like, we're not running to play with this quarterback." So there's another just knock down the totem pole. And one of the funniest moments I had in college, because a lot of guys looked at me, which Coach Parrish did not like this at all. I was looked at like the clown. Like people was like, "Oh, Percy's funny, always having a good time." And he's used to like a Tom Brady quarterback, you know. And you know, one of the days that I took, I get out of the pocket, and the quarterbacks don't get hit, but I'm a little heavier than I was when I was recruited. We'll say about 25 pounds heavier. And I came out of the pocket and was one-on-one with the safety and tried to do a move, and like looked so unathletic and fell down. And the whole practice, this is 120 guys plus coaching staff, training staff, video guy, everybody, probably 150 people are looking at me and just are laughing. And yes, at the time, like it was funny. Even in my mind, I laughed, but the same token, I'm like, I'm not used to this at all. I'm used to making other people look dumb. And that was another shot. So it was just shot after shot to my confidence. And to see the other players be so confident, it just affected me on a level like, this is how I should be, and I'm not. And that was always in my head.
How much of that was something that you just decided that you rolled with, that it was going to impact your confidence, and how much of it was really intentional with what they said and what they did to try to shake you down?
I don't think much of it was intentional. I think it just happened. And then I started to look back on things after the fact, like I am now, and think to myself, like, if I was confident in myself, who knows, I might have put up good numbers in a football career. But Coach Parrish could spot it. The team could spot it. So I got in some blowouts and took some knees, as my wife would say. But I never saw myself. After a certain point, I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to be quarterback of this team. And then Coach Hoke made that true by not even having a quarterback competition before the season ended. And next year I was going to be that was the thing they were keeping me from playing baseball, was you're going to be the quarterback when Nate leaves, once he gets drafted. And he just, after our season, he just blatantly says, you know, Kelly's going to be the quarterback, and you know, we want you to be the backup. And that just crushed me. Sure. So I was like, I'm not going to be a backup my whole career. So that's when I kind of forced my way into baseball.
Let's talk about that.
There's some more confidence. So my baseball tryout, I called Coach Beals, who's now Ohio State's coach. And I said, you know, hey, I'm Perci Garner. I'm thinking he knows who I am. He kind of knows who I am, but I'm thinking I'm just going to say, hey, I'm playing baseball now. Like, when do I start? And he's like, well, we've already had our walk-on tryouts. But maybe next year you can, and I was like, wait, no, like I thought he knew who I was. I thought he was knew I was going to be playing baseball. I'm telling all these baseball players in my class, like, hey, I'm going to be playing baseball. I'm really good. And so he's like, you know what? I'll give you a week and I'll let you try out and we'll see. Thank God, Coach Beals gave me that chance. But the first 5 days were horrendous. I could not throw the ball from me to Josh. It just wasn't. I hadn't played baseball in 2 years. Football feels different. And that was another shot to my confidence. And I don't know what gave me the strength and know how to, on the 6th day, they let me get on the mound and pitch. And my first pitch went straight to the glove. And I was just like, there is a God.
Thank God.
And they started laughing. And I'm like, oh, no. They're like, keep pitching, because they have the radar gun behind me. And, after about maybe 6 or 7 pitches or something like that, they're like, welcome to the team. They're like, you're throwing 91 to 93. And it was in the vicinity of the catcher.
Good enough.
So I joined the team and,
So if your teammates, your friends, your family back then, would they know? Would I be able to sit across from them and say, tell me how you saw Perci at that time, whenever he was switching from football to baseball and whenever he was kind of getting knocked down a little bit? Did anyone did you act differently?
When I came home, I don't think people knew. I'll tell you, my brother Jason, my older brother, he would have known. Coach Ift would have known, not because I told them. They just know me and my demeanor. And when I talk about certain things, I wouldn't even know it, but they could probably read and be like, I don't know, So I would say, and Micah, Daniel, all of my close friends, they probably felt like, okay, Perce is struggling, but it was definitely hard, and I never let that on. Mm-hmm. People didn't get that from me. They would have to read it. So
is there anything that if someone could have done something, said something that would have made a difference at that time, do you know what that would be? Or is that it wouldn't have even mattered because you weren't at a point where you could hear that stuff then?
I'm not sure. I think if someone would have tried, I think if Coach Ift or my brother or Micah, maybe even the most from Micah, just because he would have been coming from a different angle. Mm-hmm. Like I would expect, Coach Ift to try to, encourage me. But if Micah would have came from like a different perspective, like being real and maybe sharing something like, hey man, I struggle, with confidence in this area. It's like, are you struggling with anything, or, do you believe in yourself to compete at this level? That might have had an impact. I don't know. 'Cause the way I think now, yes.
Right.
But at that time, I think I was so out of touch from, mental health and the proper way to think about certain situations. And even just giving a voice to it, like even just,
I think people sometimes feel like if we give it a voice, we give it power. And then how do you come out from underneath it once you put words to it? But I think it can be incredibly freeing. Sometimes you need to go a step further than just giving words to it. But the idea of kind of unloading and opening up that box where we keep some of that, whatever it is, insecurity or stress or anxiety, I think is pretty powerful. Something else, and this isn't what I had intended to talk about, and I only want to mention this for a second, but there is a big stigma reduction campaign going on in different parts of the country. And the idea is quit saying man up. Because when we wrap our mind around the idea of you got to man up, then we don't let, especially men who have higher risks of suicide rate. And whenever they do attempt, their attempts are deadlier than typically women's. Women, not women's. It's just really a nationwide effort to encourage us to stop telling people to man up, because You're human, you're human, just like, more expressive women are human. I'm really not saying this well, Percy.
I know what you're saying, though, and it makes sense.
Can you clean it up for me? What the heck am I trying to say? I don't know if I can put a bow on
stuff like you can.
Oh, man.
But I would say, saying man up is really, it's equivalent to being ignorant in another matter that we're not going to talk about on this podcast. It's just you don't know unless you are a spiritual being or just in touch with your own thoughts, or have other men that you speak with that feel the same way. I look at man up as a different thing now that I did most of my life, and it's because of a Christian rap song, and it's called Man Up, but it's totally different in their lyrics. They're actually pretty good. You might, it might not be your taste, but to listen to the lyrics, you'll be like, oh, like, this is the true.
So I have to ask again. So how do the lyrics differ from the idea of man up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Just what's in the lyrics that leads you to a different way to look at it?
So, I would say, the group is called 116. That's basically all the main Christian rap artists there are, like Lecrae, Andy Mineo, Tadashi, all those guys. But like the song goes, it talks about what's expected of you in the secular world. And that's, man up. I think the guy says, mama wants to see Obama in me. Hood wants to see Tupac. Someone wants to see Common. So Common's like he's a rapper as well, but he's more of like an intelligent rapper, not hating on Tupac, but Tupac was more of a raw, and so you're expected to do certain things by different people as men, and it's not what lines up with what God wants. And that's just one that's like just one of the lines that's, just sticking in my head.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah. The whole song though is it just basically talks about, not trying to be tough, and like visually or physically, but being the different ways of being tough for your family, for yourself, for God in certain situations. Cause the 116, they get that from Romans 116, which is, do not deny the Father in front of man, or he'll deny you in front of his Father. So, or deny Jesus in front of man, or he'll deny you in front of his Father. So it really tugs on you.
Right. And that's exactly, I think the message that they're trying to get across is how can we support our community, our men, and being strong men without saying that you can't have anxiety, or you can't have depression, or you can't have sadness, or you can't have frustration. How do we handle that differently and look at that differently?
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I try to be as much as I can, just be someone who displays that, I guess. Yes, I do still have a shield up, and I want to portray a certain character, if you will, to people in Tuscarawas County or to people over the internet. But I also, at the same time, I feel like I'm very authentic in a way that helps other people, I think. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's why, this is good for me talking about this stuff. So,
well, and I think it takes a very strong person to talk like you're talking today. I mean, you have to be very strong to be vulnerable. And you have let me kind of poke into a lot of areas of your life. And you can't do that if you're not a strong person. So
I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. You think that we're done? We're not done. We haven't even gotten to the meat yet.
With every star, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head.
Thanks for joining us. Tune in for the next episode.